my sister and her family, my brother, they all moved to mainland because of things in Hawaii that aren't good. And we need to hold our legislators and our judicial and our executive branches accountable for allowing these problems to continue for some 70 years. And now that I'm a freshman in office, it's my hope to really challenge the status quo and address the issues and say, let's fix these issues.
Hello and welcome to ALEC's 50th annual meeting here in Orlando, Florida. Joining me right now is Elijah Pierick, state representative from the great state of Hawaii. And Elijah, welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, it seems that you're being a little bit of unkind to your home state here. You're taking your tourist dollars to Florida instead of the traditional tourist dollars that usually go to Hawaii.
I pay a high amount of state income tax. About 20 to 30% of my income tax goes to Hawaii. I don't think that should be for any of my residents, but I also pay my fair share. I also pay an exorbitant amount of property tax, which I don't think any of my residents should be paying. I mean, some of us should be paying some taxes, but I think overall we pay too much taxes. So don't worry, I give Hawaii a lot of my money.
Well, I remember back in the day, I had a friend who was working for the government out on Kauai, the base out there, and went to visit her and her husband. And I was amazed. It was the first time in my life. It was around 2008, 2009. The first time in my life I saw $6 gas.
Yeah.
Could not believe it. I mean, we've seen $6 gas again more recently here, but it just sort of struck me because I hadn't really thought about it at the time. But there is an overall cost to living on an island where everything has to get shipped in.
It's not just because of an island. It's also Bidenomics. He's choosing to shut down the Keystone Pipeline. He's choosing to have trade deals the way they are with oil around the world to make it where gas is expensive all over America, and then it does become a little bit more expensive in Hawaii.
Yeah. So what are the bigger issues that you're facing there in Hawaii? Oh, well, first off, before we get into that, which island do you actually live on?
I live in Ewa Beach, Hawaii, which is Oahu.
Oahu. Okay, there's the big island. There's Oahu. I'm not going to be good with my geography of Hawaii over there. So you're on Oahu. Always been there? Born and raised on Hawaii?
Moved there when I was 8 years old and love it ever since.
From where?
From Florida.
From Florida. Oh,
yeah.
So this is like old home week coming back here. All right. And how long have you been serving in the state legislature?
I got elected in November, so that makes us like 9 months.
Brand new.
Yes.
Fantastic. And overall, I would assume of the different issues that are facing Hawaii, at least in the little bit that I have read, and the things you hear back and forth every now and then, one of the bigger things that we're talking about has been crime. So what is it looking like right now? What are you seeing? What are the people facing? What are the police up against?
Yeah, when I went door to door to some 8,000 homes last year, one of the residents I went to in Waipahu, he answered his door and he pointed to his front yard and said, that's what I want you to fix. And there was a sign memorializing somebody who was shot in his front yard in Waipahu. And he said, Elijah, if you get elected, I want you to decrease crime. So it's my opportunity to partner with the police department to work on their recruitment and retention. And that looks like all of my newsletters that I mail out once a month or so. They have a little blurb on it saying, please join the police department. They're offering raises. They're offering all these wonderful benefits if you join their forces. Also organizing neighborhood watches and encouraging people to walk in their neighborhoods to stop crime.
Well, has Hawaii, I mean, those of us here in the lower 48 overall, we see what's happening in the sort of the hot button issues like in Oregon, in Seattle, and, sometimes up in New York and stuff like that. Is that something similar to what Hawaii's rate of crime is? Is it a little bit crazy and you don't really talk about it? Or is it just something that's just getting dangerously above what the previous levels were?
I can't say for certain what the crime rates are like in Oregon and Washington compared to Hawaii, but Hawaii's crime rate is very high and we need to make it go lower.
Well, that's actually pure for what we have just about everywhere. Okay, but some of the other things that you were talking about earlier, before we came live on here, was about the transportation issue. Now, that was one of the things that did strike me. I visited my friend on Kauai, and I was amazed to find that the highway didn't actually go all the way around the island. I mean, yes, I understand there is a volcano in the middle, but what are is that some of the things that you're seeing there right now?
So the active volcanoes are on the Big Island. On Oahu, the island I live in, the road doesn't necessarily go around the whole portion of the northwest portion. That's because previous hurricanes, previous storms washed out the road. The transportation issue that we're most focused on is traffic from town to the west side. And that can sometimes be a 2-hour journey, sometimes more. Even if it's an hour journey, for a lot of people, that's too much because without traffic, it can be a half-hour journey.
I was going to say, what's the actual distance we're talking about traveling? That will get you like a 2-hour wait.
Sometimes just 10 miles, 15 miles.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there was the job that I had back in Washington, D.C. And from my neighborhood, this is when I was living with mom and dad, fresh out of college. It was 19 miles from my doorstep to my office. And if I didn't leave by 6:45, I would not make it there by 9 a.m. And drove me crazy. So to think that same amount of time, I was actually traveling twice as far as your constituents there, that would be maddening.
I'm sorry to hear that.
But no, it would be something right now that I can see that's what would be pushing them as a very specific issue for you guys to address.
For sure. So my sister and her family, my brother, they all moved to mainland because of things in Hawaii that aren't good. And we need to hold our legislators and our judicial and our executive branches accountable for allowing these problems to continue for some 70 years. And now that I'm a freshman in office, it's my hope to really challenge the status quo and address the issues and say, let's fix these issues.
Well, Hawaii is one of those states you run across from time to time where there is one party control there. And it's a little tough that if that party, if what your agenda is not on their agenda, then your agenda is, it's kind of tough to even get it addressed, much less actually fixed. And is that some of the things that you've been seeing, that you've been running into?
I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm going to keep introducing laws and legislation and resolutions that will decrease traffic, that will decrease crime, that will decrease basically the cost of living. I'm not going to give up even if there's opposition.
Well, that's all right if there's opposition, but how do you go about trying to work with the other party in order to bring that home, to have them actually take a bit of what it is that you're trying to do on crime, on transportation, and try to make it something that they actually address?
Hopefully it looks like being less prideful and hopefully pursuing humility, to ask them for cooperation, to ask them for the opportunity for my bill to be heard in committee, to be heard on the chamber floor, to get passed over to the Senate, to ask the governor, please sign this bill into law. Those will all become miracles if they happen, but I will not stop trying.
Well, I guess part of the bigger problem is again, a place like Hawaii, when it is sort of condensed onto one party, that you probably have folks that have been sitting there in office, not years, decades.
Yes, 30 years plus.
30 years plus.
Yes.
And it's sort of hard to, the saying about teaching old dogs new tricks. Not that I'm calling anybody a dog, it's just the phrase overall. But if you've been in office for a while, you have a way of doing things, and that's all you're going to do. And you're not really going to be as open to the new ideas that a young man who's been serving this since November of 22 has come in with. So how do you try to get them to listen on our side, or do you try to address it in a different manner?
Yeah, that is a well-known phrase. Our brains are neuroplastic, and I have a doctorate degree in counseling, so I have encouragement and I have faith to believe that people can change their minds. We have over 18 legislators who have been reelected, or I should say newly elected, in 2022. So there's a lot of hope for change. There's a lot of new ideas coming into the legislature.
Yeah, well, like in my home, I was about to say home state, in my home Commonwealth of Virginia, at least like when it comes to the governor, term limited out, one term in a row, that's it, you're done. But I'm guessing Hawaii has things that are sort of open when it comes to, as long as I keep on getting elected, I get to keep serving.
Hawaii sadly does not have term limits for our state senators nor our state representatives, and the Republican caucus has introduced numerous times a term limit bill of about 12 years. We've sometimes introduced it in different year limits, but I'm totally for term limits.
Okay. Well, I thank you for coming up. This has been Elijah Pierick from the great state of Hawaii. Join us here at the ALEC 50th Annual Meeting in Orlando, Florida.